Hey guys, welcome back to the Lawrenceville Bicentennial Podcast. I am Nate McGill from Gwinnett Magazine, your host. The Lawrenceville Bicentennial Podcast is a show where once a month we drop in and talk to the people that know Lawrenceville best. Today I am in this quaint little alley in Lawrenceville that you may or may not recognize. This right here is the office where Mayor David Still lived most of his life, worked for most of his life. The early foundations of the Gwinnett Daily Post were started right here, right across the street from what's now the Strange Taco. So guys, I hope you enjoy this episode and this conversation with Mayor David Still on the Lawrenceville Bicentennial Podcast. Check it out. City of Lawrenceville celebrating their 200, the Bicentennial, the big birthday. And today in the studio, we have Mayor David Still. Thanks for being here today.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. Your family goes way back in Lawrenceville and Gwinnett.
It does. We fourth generation, at least I know that. We're doing some additional research, but I know at least fourth generation. Yeah.
Why don't we start like at the beginning of you grew up here?
I did. Yeah.
And so why don't we talk about your family history first and kind of get into that a little bit?
So my great-grandfather actually bought a house for himself and his three daughters and their husbands all on Jackson Street. So I would, as a young kid, go visit my grandmother and my aunts all the time. And that's when Jackson Street was a two-lane road, and you just pulled over on the side of the road. That would also be the road where I was riding a bicycle and had been told not to. But Joe Archer and I went and rode our bikes and then got in trouble because somebody called my grandmother told my dad, and then I was in trouble at the end of the day. So,
oh my goodness.
Those fun times like that. But that's what I like about, small community, people knowing each other, live, work, play community. And that's what we're actually trying to bring back to Lawrenceville with having all the infill with the residential units coming in, both rental and homeowners.
A lot of walkability,
right,
a lot of all that. And now we know it all traces back to the time he got in trouble riding the bike.
That's right.
It's deep. It goes deep.
It goes deep.
It was a long game.
It was a long game. Who knew that was going to influence me so? But and what's interesting is my great-grandfather for a short time was chief of police of Lawrenceville. And so he would have used the jail at the old City Hall, the jail that's behind it. My wife and I own that building.
Right,
on
down
Cronin
the
Street.
so the alley, like if you're at Strange Taco and you go across the street, there's a little alley there.
Right.
And you can walk back through there and you'll see the bars in the window there.
Yeah, it's 700 square foot building, and it's got the bars and the beds, so it's
amazing. It's still there.
Yeah, 4 cells. And so my great-grandfather would have been there. My grandfather was actually for a short time on city council of Lawrenceville.
Wow.
And then my dad bought the building, and then he and I owned it together. I forgot exactly when we bought it, but I've been in that building ever since I was age 8.
Wow.
In some form or fashion with my dad or owning it myself and having businesses there.
That's incredible. It just goes back that far.
Yeah. So it's, but yeah, our family has enjoyed Lawrenceville. I know that we came from the Decula, Harbins area, Walton, South Carolina, North Carolina. Eventually you go down that way. I was reminiscing with Dennis Still, or Judge Still. He was over 40 years, I think 42 years. He was the city judge for Lawrenceville. Okay. And Dennis and I are third cousins.
Wow.
So I get called Dennis a lot, so because he came before me.
So your dad was a newspaper man.
Right.
And you worked in that business coming up. How did that happen?
Well, he was really interested in newspapering even in high school. Worked at the local paper, the News Herald, went to UGA and journalism school, continued through that process. He worked with other publishers other than the News Herald, but at the end of the day, he helped start the Gwinnett Daily News right there in the 1969-61 time period, and then started his own paper in 1970-71. And so...
Fascinating stories about that, because today when you talk about a newspaper, I guess folks, have whatever connotation of the last newspaper they read and what that is. But long ago, the newspaper man was a totally different kind of thing. I mean, a lot of them were owners in the paper, and there was a specific business, and there was this call to journalism. It was a different kind of world.
Right. It was. For instance, the Georgia Press Association, that was a big thing that once a year, all the families that own newspapers would all go to Jekyll and have a conference. But it was generational. It was generation after generation, and in that particular city. And so then you get to know people by by their newspaper and what city they were in, and so you have these long time relationships in the newspaper world. I have not been in the newspaper world since 1994 when we sold the paper to Gray Communication.
Right. It's interesting to look back and, you grow up around here. You remember Gwinnett Daily News, and then I'm not sure what happened with the history of that paper. I think the New York Times come in at one point.
The New York Times bought it, and then they got into a major war with the Cox Enterprise. With AJC, and at the end of the day, New York Times shut down the newspaper.
Interesting.
And so then that was a kickstart for then our newspaper to take off. So then it changed from Gwinnett Home Weekly to Gwinnett Post-Tribune to Gwinnett Daily Post as it is today.
Right, and that's what people really will remember is Gwinnett Daily Post more than anything else, and of course it's still around.
Right, because we have so many people moving into Gwinnett County. So I was born in 1961, and there were, if I have my facts correct from Wayne Shackelford, because you always quote him because he knew everything about Gwinnett, was 30,000 people in Gwinnett in 1961. So now here we are, almost 1 million people. So a lot of new people come in, so they don't know anything about that past. They're focused on the future.
Right. When you look at the history of you come in and oh, this is the news channel we watch. Oh, this is the newspaper we got. And you don't really think about, wow, these are deep roots in the origins here. And so the Gwinnett Daily Post, the building that is now Iron Shield Brewing, is that the same building at one point?
That was Gwinnett Daily News.
That was Gwinnett Daily News.
Right.
Okay.
And then they moved to the building off of Shallowford and 85, which is now a middle school. Okay. The Radford Middle School.
Interesting. So fascinating. And then you guys started downtown in the building.
So
there.
in the building that I'm still have offices in. Yeah. So that's where it started. Dad started downstairs. Then he took up upstairs. He was renting at that time. Then bought the building, and then when we expanded quickly, we were renting a few other buildings down the street that are no longer there. The bank is there now. And then we moved over to where now New City Church is. We rented that facility for a while before it was then moved to Old Norcross Road when we sold it.
So you've seen the life around the square change a lot in your lifetime,
right?
And it seems like you've always been
on the square.
On the square,
yeah. It was, I watched the death of downtown Lawrenceville in the 80s when there was a lot of growth and the county was growing quickly. Before GJAC was built, they pretty much ended up renting the entire downtown area and the square. So it killed that. Between that and the malls coming in, right? It killed the downtown area. Yeah. And now, of course, it's got its own vibe and it's going great. But back in the day, the going rate was $500 a door. Didn't matter what size of building you were renting. It cost $500. That's what the family that owned a lot of the property rented it for.
That's unbelievable.
So the county took that and loved that.
So the county was, I didn't realize that they were using the whole square at that time.
Pretty much. I mean, there were very few, particularly the all the property where on the Pike Street, across from the historic courthouse, of course, the historic courthouse, and then many other buildings around the square.
I remember getting my hair cut at Simonton's, and that was about it. But I was a kid in the 80s, so I don't really remember a whole lot of what else was down there, but that's why we went down there.
Well, like where the fountain is now, there were 2 buildings there. And so one of them was where the parole office.
Okay.
And so the reason those burned was a gentleman was trying to get rid of his records because he was on parole.
Oh, my gosh.
So he went and burned a building. Unfortunately, he burned the wrong building. So he came back and burned the correct building. And that's why we lost both those buildings.
Oh, my gosh. The same guy.
Same guy.
Same guy trying to burn his records. Goodness gracious. They caught him, I hope.
They did. I will tell you some interesting things that I've noticed as of late. With my mother passing away back in March, Dad passed away 2 years ago, April 30th. I'm going through so many old photos. And one thing I found where now Sykes Davis building is at the intersection of Croghan and Clayton, I found a picture of my dad when he was a soda jerk.
Oh, wow.
And so it's taken from the back of the store. It was Williams Drugstore.
Yeah.
And so you have a tin roof, or a tin ceiling rather. And then my dad's real young, and he's at the counter, but you can see all the different stuff that the store, sold. And I also have a picture I found of my grandfather, who he was quite the entrepreneur. At different times, he owned businesses of gas stations, restaurants, taxi cab, a pool hall, all in the downtown area. And I have a picture of when he had one of his restaurants, and there he was a pretty big guy, and he has a white apron on, and he's standing behind the counter, and it's got the swivel seats that, that chrome type swivel seats people would sit in, and people are, eating at the counter, and he's behind it, and we still actually have some of those original bowls he had at the restaurant. So I plan to put that on display at some point.
Yeah, that's history.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy. That's awesome. It's cool that they still had all that kind of stuff. My family was not very good at keeping anything for very long.
My family has kept a lot. I can tell you, we're going through a lot of stuff right now. But of course, I remember as a kid walking to downtown when the Hustler magazine publisher was shot, and
Larry Flint, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was
That's crazy that there's just so many different things that have happened in Lawrenceville over the years that hit national news wires. And so that definitely was one of them that kind of unfortunately put Lawrenceville on the map for something just way out of the blue.
Right. That's not really what we would like to be known for.
Right.
But I had a lot of people ask me, oh, yeah. So that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I do remember the yellow tape and all that. And
what a day.
Yeah.
Just kind of a crazy thing. Well, that was the courthouse. That's where they were trying any case of any sort of significance down there. And you look through the history, the volumes and the newspapers, flipping through newspapers and seeing some of the stories that kind of came out of Lawrenceville. It was certainly one of them.
Yeah, I remember one story Judge Reed Merritt was talking about one time. They were having a problem. That's when they actually had court at the historic courthouse. And they were having a problem with pigeons. And they were somebody in the county government gave permission for people to come and shoot the pigeons. He said it sort of scared him a little bit when he was in court, and somebody's,
pow!
Yeah, there you go.
What's that? It's the pigeon ordinance we have around here. Yeah, good old Georgia boys out there getting some pigeons.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But it's been interesting how the old phrase "get her done." With the city doing some various improvements in the downtown area and streets, just finding all types of construction or the lack thereof of how water got through, the old terracotta pipes, and then just, cardboard, or not cardboard, but plywood and whatnot sometimes were used. And so there's been a lot of improvements, but that's what you see when you have a city as old as ours. I mean, 200 years means a lot of things have occurred in that time period. So
Yeah, it's wild to think and to see. I mean, even in my lifetime, to see the changes from the what it was like there in the mid '90s onto the early 2000s into the economic recession there, and then just a boom happened. And going back to just, I guess, being that a vision of council or the planning that had to take place in order to get it there, it seems like at first, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like there was these former glory days of Lawrenceville being the county seat. When you get into the 80s and 90s, folks that are in city government and everything start really kind of doing the hearkening back to we need to bring something back to our city. And I'm not sure if at what point that really started or when that vision started to come to be, but I would imagine it was probably a lot earlier than we might realize.
Well, I would say where it really got going was when Bobby Sykes was mayor, really started getting getting
the momentum
some traction.
Going, yeah.
So it started around 2003, and it was between Bobby Sykes and then Emery Morrisberger. They're Emery purchasing properties about the same time that city was ready to start their master plan, and so it was just perfect timing.
Yeah,
I call it God's timing, and it just took off and did great.
Yeah.
Then we had some, the recession deal, the Great Recession or whatever they call it,
right?
2008. But then
pump the brakes.
Yeah, but then it came back, and it's been going.
Some great things got done during that period. You got Aurora coming in. You got some townhomes being built. You've got some of the very first signs that this is going to be a serious live, work, play area. Right. And then, of course, like you said, recession happens, put the brakes on a little bit, you have to.
Right. And then it started coming back. And
exploded back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just with the really having, starting with the council and when Bobby Sykes was mayor and Emery's team, and then taking off, and then the future council seeing that we really needed to make the hub of Lawrenceville, healthy. And then in my opinion, it makes also Gwinnett County healthy to have your county seat to be where everybody's coming to with the hospital, with the college, GGC, with the government there. That brings people to the as some of the younger kids say now, the capital of Gwinnett. So.
Yeah, that's a good slogan. I like that.
Well, I got that from one of the lead demonstrators that we had last year. I said, well, why are you coming to Lawrenceville since your specific issues are not with our police? And they went, well, Lawrence was just the capital of Gwinnett, and it's just a cool place to have a protest. I said, all right, glad we made that list.
Yeah, it's a cool place to do everything. Whatever, protests included.
But it's been a really neat learning experience and getting all the generations more engaged in Lawrenceville, because then those individuals, those leaders came off the street, and then we all got to sit down and have a lot of long discussions and talks in the building. And now that's going forth into the county, at the county level. And so I'm very much encouraged. It's brought community together, and that's what we need to do.
Absolutely. 100%. The area of the city, it feels like it has grown. For so long, it felt like you were just on the square. And now when you think of Lawrenceville, you're starting to think of like a larger area, not just because of the lawns projects and all of that, but then all of the building that's coming, all of the residential that's there. And even when you're walking around, like we were there this weekend, walking around, and there's just so many people of all different walks of life down there just enjoying something with Lawrenceville.
You didn't see that 7 years ago. And that is really cool because people are starting to, I guess, invest and own Lawrenceville, of whether they were born here or not.
Right.
And that's what we want, because if you don't feel that you're invested into your city, then it's just another place you're going to be stopping at and moving on to. So, but if you're invested, then you care about it and it's yours and you want to take care of it. And so that's what the message we're trying to get out there to everyone that lives in Lawrenceville or lives in the zip codes of Lawrenceville. Let's make this your town.
Yeah.
And let's improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. So you, going back to your story, you talked about you and your dad ended up selling the business, the newspaper business, and then you went into mergers and acquisitions for a bit.
Right. Yeah. I've been doing that for the past 25, almost 26 years.
How did you get into that? Did you go to school for journalism, business, both?
I was in journalism for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
Then I transferred out into business in University of Georgia, the business school.
I see.
Lost a lot of credits. Still graduated in 4 years.
Well, most people can't say they used their degree, and I feel like you used both of them in different chapters.
Yeah,
So.
I did. I was not a writer at the newspaper. I ran the business section,
Sure,
or the business part.
Makes sense.
And then when we sold, I was 25% owner. Dad was 75, but I brokered the transaction.
Okay.
And from there, I signed a 7-year non-compete, so I could not be in the newspaper industry if I wanted to live in the metro area. So
Makes sense.
I had to retool myself. So I went into doing mergers and acquisitions, took a lot of classes, traveled around the country to gain that knowledge and certification, and got mentors from Portland, Oregon, and Boston, and then have been doing that the past 25 years. But also in 2003, I met Emery Morrisberger, did some consulting with him.
Okay, wonderful.
And so I was the person that I bought up 30 plus properties in downtown Lawrenceville.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For him.
Didn't know that. Yeah.
I was behind the scenes, and then
There you go.
was working with the city on the private side, helping with the create the master plan in 2005 that came out. And then eventually, when I wasn't I only consulted 2003 through 2005 with Emery. After that point, that was sort of a side gig, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
But I really enjoyed it. And
you got to contribute back to your hometown again, you know, where you were working literally just on developing properties around the square and around the area, I'm sure.
But then always having a love for Lawrenceville, I got appointed to Lawrenceville Tourism and Trade Association.
Right.
Then from there, I was asked to serve on the Downtown Development Authority. And after a few years, then I was chair and that authority. And then was asked to run for city council. And I was still chair of the DDA for the first 2 years while I was on the city council, and then asked to run for mayor. So that's life is sort of, taken off, but it's a focus on Lawrenceville. I was just,
that's never changed.
Yeah. I don't have any political ambitions. I didn't ever plan to be on city council. That was not, the closest I ever came.
Well, sometimes that's exactly what you need in leadership is someone without the political aspirations, because a politician's going to care about himself. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's very true. Whereas if you're a servant of the city on city council, and I know it's true for a lot of folks on your council now, they care about people that they serve and the employees of the city and that kind of thing.
Right. I was asked to speak to the graduating class of the political science majors at GGC last week, and that's exactly how I ended it. Was always be a servant. Don't ever, if you decide to run for office, never go into it for anything else other than to be a servant.
Very good. You get a lot when you serve too. It's like it just, there's a certain joy there that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, right? and the gray hairs come as well.
Touche. Yes, I understand. Very good, very good. Well, it's 200 years of Lawrenceville. You guys have been rocking along in the last few years, just making it an incredible place to come and visit and be. Tons of places to eat, tons of things to do. It's really a fun place for families to come to. A lot of great places now where you can actually live in walking distance to the city. So the walkability's kind of shot through the roof. So that's really cool. What are some of the focuses on today that you'd like to talk about with the city? Like what's going on and what you guys hope to see for the next 200 years, maybe?
Next 200.
I need the entire plan.
Entire
the
plan.
next 200 years right here.
Well, I think trying to create stability, we want to make sure, one of the goals is just trying to have a balanced housing for all socioeconomic levels and to get people to that own, one of the problems when you're 200 years old is you have a lot of old inventory of housing, and a lot of people that own it do not live in Lawrenceville. They live outside and they just want their rent, and they don't want to put no investment into the product. So
I see.
That creates a problem. And so we've been working on that area to try to create a halo effect from the downtown area so that then people want to invest. It's sort of like the book, Broken Windows. If people don't take care of their properties, then things can slowly slide down. So we've had to work to try to, through code enforcement and through engaging people in redevelopment to help them invest into their property. So we've had to, the city has taken a position to incentivize groups to come in and redevelop, and that's what you have to do in a city that's already basically built out. We don't have a lot of acreage that's just barren for people to go build on.
Right.
So we have to tear down and rebuild. And I know there's some tension sometimes with that. We want Lawrenceville to keep its character,
sure,
but also at the same time, we want people to be able to thrive. And to thrive, you have to have an income and good jobs. So we're working to try to build up our job base with different developments that we're working on right now that are going to take anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 years to really get that project done. So I can tell you that's one of the keys is trying to build higher paying jobs so that people can truly live, work, play.
That's great.
So they can, and it's we're getting there. But there's so much that you have to do in the background way before anything happens. And government's slow, and that's been hard for me to deal with coming out of the private sector, but it's okay because it has all the checks and balances so that nobody can come in and abuse the citizens' revenues that they've paid into the city. So
what does the city of Lawrenceville mean to you, David?
Relationships. And I think that's how you build a city is on relationships. If you don't have the relationships, you really don't have a community. So to have a healthy community, you have to have relationships. And so people have to have those connection points to get to see each other so that when they go to the park, they get to see a friend or that maybe they just saw at work the other day. And it also you get a little accountability. You can't go and be one person at work, one person in your neighborhood, and one person over here at church.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's groundbreaking right there. What a novel concept. And 2021 to be the same person everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a really insightful notion there. When you have a close-knit community, man, that's kind of deep.
Well, I think that's what by achieving that, I think we really will have a truly healthy community so that people aren't doing things just for their benefit. They're doing for the benefit of the whole community.
I think that's what people are craving right now.
Right.
Is more of that. Just a place to be real.
Yep.
And enjoy your life and be happy,
Right. Well, people want people to be intentional and sincere. And, when I look at all of us, we're all just like we were in elementary school and in middle school. We all got a little bit of insecurity. You know, we don't want to be made fun of.
Sure.
And but it takes some of us, you know, that are willing to ask the questions and look stupid, but we make progress. So.
Well said. Well, that should be a T-shirt right there. You did it.
One thing neat about Lawrenceville is that it is the county seat for the county. And one thing that's really been moving forward lately in taking Lawrenceville and the county forward is the city government working well with the county government and trying to work well for the citizens as opposed to their individual interest. And so if we focus on the community and not who's getting credit for what, it makes a much better county and city.
Agreed.
So.
Well, thank you so much for coming today, having this conversation with us, helping us celebrate Lawrenceville's bicentennial. Appreciate you being here, and thank you for all that you've done for the city of Lawrenceville, sir.
Well, thanks for the time. I enjoyed it.